Fredda, you're founder of Relative Solutions. Tell me about that business. What do you do?
We work with multi-generational families who, either by choice or because it's been handed to them, join their economy with their family system, which means they make their money together or they manage their assets together of some kind, foundations, businesses. Most of the families that we work with generally have at least one or two of those. They may have a business in real estate or a business in liquid assets, but they have some version of that.
So when you say you work with them, what exactly are you trying to help them accomplish?
Well, when you think about it, all of us deal with relationships, but if you also have this thing that you have to relate to, which is something that's joined, you have to make joint decision making long past being a young child and being told what to do or being a sibling. So we help them figure out structures that allow them to make decisions together, to avoid conflicts, governance kinds of processes and structures, leadership development, helping the next generation to get educated so that they're more enlightened than entitled, which I think is a really important aspect of what we do. And that's sort of it. I mean, when I say it, it sounds so much more simple than when I do it, but that's the version of what we do.
Well, I know that some people who work with family businesses are sometimes billed as being therapists, and you are very definitely not
Absolutely.
a therapist. So let's focus on that distinction for just a moment.
It's an interesting distinction because I came from being a therapist. I was a family therapist for years and really successful at it. But once I got into this model, it really became clear to me there's some therapeutic skills I can use, but I'm not there to uncover stuff with people and help them work through their own individual dynamics or their family dynamics, and oftentimes find myself referring people for that kind of thing. My goal is to be able to leave an emotional system, the family, with some degree of integrity, not have it destroyed by what they own and not having them destroy what they own. So it's a both and. And so I use skills that come from that. I think about who's connected to whom, who do I have to enter, how available are these families for work, but I don't really ever get into being a shrink with them.
I think that probably helps you be more effective in your work with clients.
Well, it means that I think in some ways if you just are a shrink, you're only dealing with emotional stuff. You're not dealing with the business stuff. And I have to really keep in mind both. So in some ways it does make me more effective, I think.
And I think that's probably part of the underpinning of why you've developed some of the tools that you have that you put to work in your business. Let's talk about those. Tell me about the Sustainability Index, for example, or some of the other tools you use.
So let me start with the one that we developed first, because that one's been around for about 8 years now, and that's called the Family Enterprise Leadership System. And what we discovered was that families and the people who advise them need to have some way of connecting with people that's anonymous, because people are so exposed. When you're in a family that has your economy together, anything you do or say about your family to the world or vice versa puts you at increased jeopardy because your money is involved, your livelihood's involved. So we were looking for a way of trying to get next generation people specifically, but also CEOs and family businesses, some adequate anonymous feedback on how they're doing, how are they developing in their capabilities. And so we have a tool that they have a 360. People who are in various parts of their family business come in addition to themselves, go online and rate them. And we have unbelievable rates of return. I think the lowest we've ever had is like a 96% rate of return. And the kind of feedback, people are very invested because their name are not associated. Nobody really knows who they are. And they just get feedback and they compile that into a development system. And if you're in a family enterprise, you realize nobody ever takes an interest in how you're going to go from here to there. If you were to be not in a family business and you said, I want to eventually be a CFO, you'd start plotting how do you get there. But if you're in a family business, you sort of give that up or turn it over in some way. And so we begin to help people plot what they want to do. So our newest one is sustainability. And the Sustainability Index allows a family to go on, see how do they have things in place that allows them to move forward. And how are they doing? Every family member can go on and rate themselves. They get a scattergram that says, here's how you're doing, and they get to test it for later on. So it's tools that seem helpful to us for our work, and then we make them available to other people for their work.
Makes sense to me. You've really been a pioneer in this field. Why you and why this business? What draws you over and over again to do this kind of work?
I grew up in a family of 5 siblings. I always thought families and people were extraordinarily interesting. And I feel like it's sort of a puzzle in some ways. And I love to figure out puzzles. I always was great at doing puzzles, and I used to spend time with my kids on puzzles. So I think there's an element of that, and I love figuring out how to help people get through situations that they deal with and complexities that most of us just don't think about. And I love to write. I love to present, and so that sort of helps also.
So what else do you love to do in your spare time?
Talking about writing and presenting, I always was very interested in being an actress and a singer. And so I went back 3 years ago, went back to taking some acting classes. So that, while it's a lot, I feel like I expose myself every week in ways that I don't necessarily like to. But it's like going back in at an older age at a thing that you don't do very well, but making a fool of yourself. But it's opened up my mind to all sorts of interesting things.
All sorts of interesting things that I'm sure you're going to continue as you go forward. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thanks much.